profound healing that she brings into other people's lives. And to officially read her bio, let me share this. Nanci Adair guides coaches and creatives from around the globe to take their big dreams off the back burner. The reality that wishful thinking is not enough propelled Nanci to study psychology, coaching, metaphysics, ministry, and hypnosis. If you're ready for a no excuses coach, then Nanci and her You Can Do services will be a good fit for you. She's also the author of Achieve the Summit of Your Dreams. And please welcome Nanci Adair with her presentation, where she is inviting us to embrace your inner critic. Nanci, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And it really is a pleasure for me to be here today and to once again participate in the Sing Your Heart Song Summit. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey with me, one that is a part of a personal mission of mine. So I'd like to begin with a story, and I'd like to have all of you close your eyes so you can tap into your imagination. I want you all to imagine that you're in a premier music hall, specifically the Apollo Theater in New York City, and the year is 1932. You are sitting amidst a packed house, and a spindly Afro-American teenage girl of 16, whose cult-like legs make her look no more than 13, walks up to the concert pianist and whispers in his ear. He then ceremoniously takes a stand, walks center stage, and addresses all of you in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize. Our next young performer has just informed me she will not dance. Instead, she is going to sing for you. Please give a warm welcome to the stage, Miss Ella Fitzgerald. And you can go ahead and open your eyes. My mission is to give you permission to be good enough. And I'd like to ask Olivia if she can play the Good Enough song by Karen Drucker. Let's see if that will work.
Playing one.
There it is.
When I woke up this morning and I looked in the mirror, a voice came in my head, pointing out each fear. She said, "You're fat, you're stupid, you're ugly. How'd you get that way?" In that moment, I just had enough and I said, "No way," because I'm good enough, good enough. Nothing here is missing. I give myself permission to be good enough, good enough. I got the right stuff. I'm good enough. Now those wavy models in the magazines that I see every day, it looks like a tiny little breeze could just blow them away. But I'm a woman of substance, standing in my power. Right here, right now, I do declare that it's my finest hour. And I'm good enough, good enough. myself permission to be good enough, good enough. I got the right stuff, oh, I'm good enough. Well, I'm no Cindy Crawford and I'm no Tyra Banks, but I got a body that is healthy, and for that I give thanks. I don't have to be perfect, who I am is okay. I'll say it loud, I feel so proud, I stand up and say, oh, I am good enough, good enough. I'm on a mission to give myself permission to be good enough, good enough. I got the right stuff, oh, yeah, I am good enough, good enough, good enough. I'm on a mission to give everyone permission to be good enough, good enough, good enough. We got the right stuff, oh, we're good enough, good enough now. Oh, yeah. Stand up and say, you gotta stand up and say, good enough. Stand up and say, stand up and say that I'm good enough, good enough. Oh, I'm good enough. Stand up and say I'm good enough, good enough.
Thank you, Olivia. You know, I've known for a long time that that was a true story about Ella Fitzgerald. But what I didn't learn until later was that Ella decided not to dance because she lacked confidence in her dancing. And I can only imagine, as incredible a singer as she is, that her dancing was not far behind. And I'd like to ask all of you, how many of you have let your fears of not being good enough get in the way of your creative process? And if you have, just jot in the chat, me too, or I have, or yes, so that I know I'm not alone. Actually, I know well that I'm not alone with that. And what do you think your number one obstacle has been? And put that in the chat too. What do you think your number one obstacle to achieving the level of success you want has been? Or the number one obstacle to successfully expressing your creativity in the way that you are drawn to express it? You can hear my puppy in the background. Thinking I need to be somewhere. Yeah. How will I be judged? Not having the confidence. So I'll give you my opinion. I think the number one obstacle has been you. You don't need to look any further than in the mirror. You are the number one obstacle to successfully expressing your creativity, and you are the number one obstacle to achieving that level of success that you want. It's you. More specifically, it's your inner dialogue, your inner critic, the one who tells you that your creative pursuit isn't possible, or isn't good enough, or can't be done, or at least can't be done by you. So if, like me, you've been told most of your life that you're too hard on yourself, and if, like me, you would never talk to another human being the way you talk to yourself in the privacy of your own mind, you are not alone. In fact, some of the greatest minds in history have had similar struggles. I had the privilege several years ago to interview the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt's granddaughter, Anne Roosevelt. on my You Can Do radio show. And we discussed the inner critic, and Anne told me that her grandmother had what she referred to as Griselda days. So I researched the origin of the word Griselda. That's something I like to do. And this is what I found. The origin of the word Griselda comes from two German words, grist and hilt. And the root meaning actually translates to dark battles. So even First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt had her dark battles. And let's not leave out Oprah. Oprah Winfrey describes having basement days. And one of my favorite stories is that of Cicely Tyson. In a public interview, Ms. Tyson admitted that following her audition for a part in the movie Because of Winn-Dixie, she climbed into bed and stayed there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. She didn't come out from under the covers until she received that phone call telling her that she had the part. You know, she's a celebrated actress and she's known far and wide for her charitable work in education. And even she could not get out of bed. And I have to admit to you, that story helped me feel better. You know? So seemingly without exception, we're all plagued by a formidable inner critic. I used to call my inner critic an inner terrorist. I did so because my inner critic wanted nothing short than to annihilate me. My inner critic wanted to destroy, obliterate, and do away with my creative aspirations. And now I deliberately use this term embrace rather than banish or do away with. Simply put, try as you might to get rid of an inner critic, your inner critic, it won't work. My experience has shown me that when I run away from, try to ignore, or even discredit that inner voice, that inner critic, the critical inner voice grows louder. Our inner critic often has multiple voices. One time I shared this with another artist, a well-accomplished and celebrated artist, and she said that she had a whole cell of terrorists in her mind. These internalized inner voices can stem from well-meaning people who love us, and I call these people our fear leaders. They can be parents, even those parents that are no longer with us. They seem to have planted the seeds of internal negative messages in our minds, in our heads. Or they could be a well-meaning spouse who lets their own fears get in the way of supporting you. This good-intentioned partner may unwittingly throw a wet blanket over your creativity, saying something like, you know, on our fixed income, we really can't afford to have you go on that retreat or build out a studio in the barn or sign up for Steve Garvin's online storytelling course, et cetera, et cetera. Do you remember the saying that sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you? Just put in the chat if you do. Yes, I remember that saying. It's a lie, isn't it? It's a lie. Words can hurt us. I'm going to take you on another journey, one that is personal to me. You can close your eyes or not. But I want to take you back to 1974. I was a freshman in Drawing 101 at Southampton College, part of Long Island University. The teacher was Bob Munford. He was world renowned for his Barnum and Bailey circus posters. I was amongst 30 eager freshmen sitting on the back of our art benches, drawing the nude model in the center of the room. I had picked up on Bob's habit of circling round the studio until he took a drawing from one student to critique up at the front of the room and compliment their work. I waited with bated breath for my day to arrive, and then it did. Bob reached across my drawing board and he swept up the single sheet of newsprint and went to the front of the room and stapled it to the critique wall for all to see. Then in a booming voice, these words came from his mouth. "This is the worst preconceived notion of foreshortening I have ever seen." And I agree with you, Cooper. He's growling. Then he demanded I come forward to stand with him at the front of the class. Surrounded by my peers, Bob said, "What is your name?" I began to speak softly. See, it catches my voice even now. I began to softly speak when he interrupted and said, "Oh, you're not going to cry, are you?" And as you can imagine, at that point, while trying to say no, against my will, I burst into tears. These words of Bob not only hurt me, they scarred me, and they shaped my future. Discouraging messages like these are latched onto by our inner critic and fuel that internal dialogue and that sense of worthlessness. The voice of the inner critic is at times more subtle. Perhaps you feel self-doubt. Then again, your inner critic might not be subtle at all. I've even witnessed people who speak the voice of their inner critic right out loud, and I bet some of you have too. So one of my favorite sports now is pickleball. And if I'm on a pickleball court and I'm playing and I can't remember my team member's name or my opponent's name, all I have to do is wait. Because sure enough, if they make a lousy shot, they're apt to call themselves right out loud by their name, like, "Oh, Olivia, you're such an idiot. What's wrong with you? You can do better," right out loud. So again, in the chat, just add if you have experienced that, where you've been somewhere and someone spills wine on the hostess's white couch and, mortified, says out loud, "Oh my God, I can't believe that I was such an idiot that I did that. I'm so stupid." Can you imagine if we all were to walk around with those, those cartoon bubbles that float above your head? Can you imagine if we walked around with those and everyone could read our inner dialogue? Imagine the passerby could read, "I'm an idiot," or "I'm a loser." Or sadly to say, one of my old favorites was, "I'm going to die alone." My inner voice would say, "You're going to die alone." Crazy. I'd like you to take a moment now and write down, and please enter it in the chat if you're willing. And it really can be just fine if you want to keep it private. One or more of the examples of what you do say to yourself. And I want to ask you to go deep, the way you do when you're in the privacy of your own mind. And I'll give us just a minute or so to really think about what that most unkind inner dialogue has been, past or present. And I don't love it in any way that I love that this is something that you'd say to yourself that you would never amount to anything. But that's a story that I've heard a lot of times, especially the artist who says, you know, I haven't sold my work, therefore I'm not a real artist. Or I'm not published and I can't consider myself a real author. We're always comparing ourselves, which is another way to keep our creative process at bay. And you all know that this is a fear-based lie. It's not the truth about who you are. It's actually another reason why I use the term embrace rather than get rid of or destroy. And it has to do with the soul's intention of the inner critic. However negative, harmful, or destructive your inner critic and inner dialogue may be, the truth is that our inner critics are well-intentioned. The intention is one of protection. Inner condemnation, like many self-defenses, are in an effort to protect the self. So I'm a big component and follower of Marshall Rosenberg, the author of Nonviolent Communication, and he defines violent communication as any communication that hurts another person, whether or not that is the intent. Because of this, I have no intention of dismissing the pain caused by the inner critic by saying that their intentions are benevolent. Rosenberg also says that the root of all violent communication is unmet needs. I actually think this is true about all violence, that it stems from our unmet needs. This certainly includes violent communication toward oneself, and our unmet need is for self-love. I recently listened to Marie Follier, author of Everything is Figure Outable, in her podcast interview of Mel Robbins. And Mel said she does not hear the voice of her inner critic any longer. And I love that. I don't think of my inner voice, my inner critic, as an inner terrorist, and it still comes up for me from time to time. Mel said that, in fact, now when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see just a reflection of her face. She sees her soul. And she went on to describe that the love she feels toward herself is the same love she feels for her daughters. And being a mother and knowing that mother love, the thought of having that deep love for myself is just wonderful. And I'm also sure that many of you have heard someone refer to listening to their intuition as listening to their inner voice, a small, still inner voice. Ella Fitzgerald, when she chose not to dance, was listening to her intuition. Don't you wish you had an inner voice that was as accurate as Ella's and could champion you into the success that is yours for the making? I believe our need is for this inner champion. I want those inner voices of our inner champions not to be still, small, or quiet, so small that we fail to hear them. I want our inner champions to be like inner cheerleaders doing somersaults, shouting triumphantly to cheer us on. I want to embrace the intentions of the inner fear leaders and replace them with inner cheerleaders. And that brings me to one more lie that I want to talk to you about that we've all been told. So I'm going to ask you again to use your imagination, to close your eyes, and to imagine a younger version of yourself, as young as you can remember easily, and it's your birthday. You're sitting in front of a cake all alit with candles. And what are you told to do before you blow out those candles? And open your eyes if you've closed them so you can enter into the chat. What were you told to do before blowing out your birthday candles? That's right. I knew that you'd know it. It's make a wish. And again in the chat, what were you told about that wish? You're right again. Don't say it out loud. Don't tell anyone. And why not? Again in the chat. Why were we told to keep it a secret? You're right. We were told to keep it a secret because if we didn't, it wouldn't come true. And that's the lie. In fact, we've learned from many greats in the personal development industry that the opposite is true, that you must visualize your dreams and desires and boldly share them with the world. Many of you know my book, Achieve the Summit of Your Dreams. It's based on a model of life coaching that I created and call the Goal Model Method, or GMM for short. The purpose of my Goal Model Method is to develop an internal team of people you admire who can champion you to reach your greatest success. Oh, I lied. I said that I asked you to close your eyes for the last time, and I want you to do it one more time. Close your eyes again, relax your breathing. Allow into your consciousness an image of a person that you've admired, maybe someone who has inspired your creativity. This person does not have to be among the living. They can even be a fictional character or a historical figure or a well-known celebrity or your mom or your next door neighbor. Just allow the person that comes into your mind to be someone who has been an inspiration, who you admire. And once you've brought a person, or if more than one pops into your mind, enter those names in the chat. I see Amy Tan is with us, and Madeline Ingle, and Martin Luther King Jr., a mentor from Pakistan, Howard Hossman, Wilhelmina Cole, Solomon Cole, and Maya Angelou, who happens to be one of my favorites. Is there, well, I'd like to describe the next exercise, an exercise that I want to share with you. And if there is someone that wants to do a little role play or play along, I'll ask for a volunteer. And if not, this will be something that you'll work on with a friend or by yourself. You can do it in multiple ways. In my book, I have a section of the book where you choose one of your goal models to interview as you develop your team, and to ask them why and how they would serve you on your team. And I love the addition of Mary Oliver just came up on the chat. And I like to really say that these people are with us. Maya Angelou, Mary Oliver, Hisham Sarar are all with us right now. Their energies are flowing through us. And that energy is for all of us. Oh, Hans Christian Andersen, these are great. They're really wonderful. So one of the exercises I do in the book is that you interview the person to be on your goal model team. Michelle Obama has come in many times, as has Oprah Winfrey. And in the book, I also have some interview questions that are, I'm just going to reach for a copy of my book so I can cheat and look at those. What I've also done, which I really love doing, is working in groups of people where you embody the person that is your goal model. And then the other people in the group ask you questions. So one time I had a group of people that did not know each other before coming together, and there were 10 of them, and they all embodied one of their goal models. And then we chose names. They put the name of their goal model into a hat, and we chose names out. And one at a time, the person would embody that person that they admired, and the rest of us asked them questions. And during this one session that I'm thinking of, I had both Barack Obama show up and Michelle Obama, but played by different people that didn't know each other. And it was really fun. So it's both a way to go deep and learn about yourself. It invokes a lot, and it can be fun. So is there anyone tonight that would like to volunteer? Can we highlight a person if they do volunteer, Olivia, so that both that person and myself can be on screen?
I think so. I think we can pin you and then pin the person as well, or spotlight. Yeah.
Spotlight. Yeah, that's the word that I was looking for. But I don't yet see a volunteer, so that's okay too.
I will volunteer, Nanci.
Oh, yay. Thanks, Steve.
I'm always game to play.
And who is it that you're going to embody? Because you had a lot of names up there, and I love to.
I will go with Hans Christian Andersen.
Okay, that's great. All right, and I will start with a couple of the questions right out of my book. And then if anyone else has a question for Hans, please put it in the chat. The first question that I'm going to ask you is, Hans, what can you do for Steve as a part of his goal model team?
Help him see the stories in his life that will last the test of time.
And Hans, also, when you look ahead, what is your vision for Steve?
My vision for Steve is to see him embrace the ugly duckling and to see the emergence of the beautiful swan within his own life.
Okay. Hans, what decisions have you made that created positive results in your own life?
I just believed from the very beginning of my life in the power of story. And even when I was not well accepted, when I was actually the laughing stock in my school, I kept believing in the power of story and kept creating and sharing stories. And eventually, those stories became well loved. And rather than being the subject of jeers at school, I became the subject of kings and queens around the European continent.
So, Hans, what is your greatest strength that relates to the goals that Steve has expressed?
One, we both love a good story. And two, the greatest stories don't have to, have very simple, humble beginnings.
And Hans, how can Steve keep his inner child alive?
By not taking himself too seriously.
That's great. And Hans, do you believe that you are a good choice for Steve's team?
I do.
Why?
Because Steve is just a swell guy.
There are a couple of awesomes coming up on the chat. So I think people agree with you, Hans.
But seriously, no. I think we can have a lot of fun playing the story and just seeing, how simple stories can make a big difference.
And how rich it can be, right? Even while you're being very playful and having a good time.
Absolutely.
So Hans, before we conclude this interview, is there anything else that you want to share with Steve?
Keep believing and keep creating. Don't let your inner demons, your 10 soldiers get in the way of telling your story.
So I just want to share from the chat that Olivia was just saying, this might be a great follow-up workshop. So I'm like, oh, I love it. Because it actually grows in power when you bring in not only Hans Christian Andersen, but some of the other people on Steve's, the early thoughts of creating a team would include Martin Luther King and Madeline Engel. And, I love my good friend, Cynthia Oraduba. I just botched her last name, Oraduba, is bringing in Wilhelmina Cole and Maya Angelou, and we have Mary Oliver. And when you bring all those people together, the energies that come through their stories, how many of those names we recognize, it really becomes very powerful. So I want to invite you all to think about this and work on interviews and providing yourself with a team of champions. It really takes a team, because I want that inner champion voice to get loud. And I'd like to conclude tonight, and thank you, Steve, for participating, with a mantra that as many of you as can or are willing to put yourselves off mute, you don't have to be on camera. I just want to share this mantra that I use for myself, and I use it when I go walking, sometimes very early in the morning. And the mantra is simple. It's I do enough, I have enough, I am enough. And I will put that in the chat. And I'd like to say it a few times out loud together. Let me just put it here so you can all see it.
I got you covered, Nancy.
Okay. I do enough. I have enough. I am enough. All right. Together with me. I do enough. I have enough. I am enough. Good. Again. I do enough.
I do enough.
I have enough. I
am enough.
I do enough.
I do enough.
I
I
have
have
enough.
enough.
I
am enough.
And you are. Oh, the wonderful wine at the end there from Cooper. It's all done. Are there any questions? I know we have just a few minutes.
Can you bring Cooper up to share with everybody?
Oh my God, he would love it. Or maybe it's me that I would love it, but.
Cooper often joins our masterminds. Cooper is just this wonderful bundle of energy, and we often hear him in the background yipping or pulling at a pillow or a blanket, or just playing around in our chew toys.
Oh yeah, and kisses abound. Ooh, I love it.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any questions or thoughts about who might be your cheerleaders, your goal models? I love the fact, and I'm going to hope you don't mind me sharing this, Nancy, but I love the fact that you have invited your goal models at times to be in the shower with you so you can start the day.
Well, there's a great story about that too, Steve, because I was on Dave Buck's research and development team for marketing. He's a marketer extraordinaire. And he said to use your quirks to market your programs. And he used to sing show tunes, but change the words that people would, recognize the tune, and he would implement his own words there. And I came away from that conversation thinking, I don't really have any quirks. And then I took my shower the next morning and I had laminated the goal models before I even, formed that word. It's GOAL model, goal model team. I had laminated pictures of people and put them up in my shower. So every morning I'd ask a question, and it's funny that there were a number of comedians in that initial group, including Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg and Ellen DeGeneres. And I don't know that Steve Martin was in an early one, but there were just a lot of comedians. And I stepped out of the shower thinking, that's a little quirky that I talk to people in my shower and I have their pictures there every morning. So I started to really market my team that way by saying, at conferences, I'd do a presentation and I'd ask people, I actually ran a contest. Why would you want to be in my morning shower with me? And I got all kinds of answers. And I used to say, well, it certainly isn't to hear me sing. So but yes, and I had a woman who's been the trainer for me with the goal model method, who put images of her goal models on coffee cups so that she could have a cup of coffee with a goal model every morning. And that was her way of having, there's a part of the book where I really encourage people to form a daily dialogue with their goal models. So another woman was a hat maker, and one of the people on her goal model team was Abe Lincoln. And she created an Abe Lincoln hat, and she created hats for each of her goal models. And when she sat in dialogue with them, it was like from Harry Potter. She'd sit with her hat on and embody that person. So, yeah. And Steve, is there a formal ending finale to the summit?
Actually, I think that's Olivia's department, but
Okay.
all together now, one, yay.
Well, I was going to say, I love that mantra that Nanci has offered to us. So I hope you guys will remember to save the chat and just keep that, maybe write it in lipstick on the mirror when you wake up in the morning, to say those words, I do enough, I have enough, and I am enough, and to say with a smile, and to really feel it, and to have a little chuckle and a laugh with it as well, too, to really seal it in, lock it in.
Olivia, will you lead us in a yay process?
Sure, we can. Yeah, absolutely. So let me demonstrate this to you first. So why don't we do that? Why don't we just, form that habit right now? So we'll repeat the mantra once together, and then we'll do it again with a smile. And then I'm going to show you the sequence where we're going to say, we're going to clap. We're going to say, ho, ho, ha, ha. And that's going to lock in the affirmation, okay? And we'll do it 3 times because the magic number is 3. So we'll say the affirmation 3 times, smiling, and then we're going to do this 3 times. So again, and you can follow along with me. So it's going to be ho, ho, ha, ha. And that's how we'll finish, okay? All right, so unmute, please. I invite you to unmute. Let's get those unmutes off. All right, excellent. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I am enough. I do enough. I have
enough.
Oops, I did that out of order.
And you know what? It's a mantra that can be done in any order.
Okay, we just laugh it off. Okay, so we'll just look at the chat again. All right, here we go. I do enough.
I
have enough. I am enough.
I am enough.
One more time. I do enough.
I do enough.
I have enough. I am enough. Last time. I do enough.
I do enough.
I have
I
enough.
have enough.
I
I
am
am
enough.
enough.
And let's clap it up. Ready? So, ho,
Oh,
ho,
oh,
ha,
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 ha.
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 It takes some practice. So, ho,
Oh,
Oh,
ho,
oh,
oh,
ha,
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 ho,
oh,
ho,
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 ha,
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 ha.
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 You ever see, Olivia, how fast you can do that?
Yeah, and that's what we call brain gym when you try to do it really fast. So everybody go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ho,
Oh,
ho,
oh,
Ha,
ha, ha, oh, oh, ha, ha, oh, oh, ha, ha, oh.
oh my.
Oh my.
And who cares? You're just in your bathroom mirror saying these mantras out loud, right? So And in laughter yoga, we released our inner child. So the way we do that is very good, very good, yay. So with me now, very good,
Good.
Very
Very
good.
good. Yay.
yay.
Awesome. Thank you
seeing you all.
for being part of this Sing Your Heart Song Summit. It has truly been a pleasure. My heart is full. I hope each of you also have a full heart from what you have received today, and I hope that you will return and join us again tomorrow. We start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Same Zoom, same room.
Yes. Awesome. You all have a